Welcome to the second day of the World Communities Forum. I want to give shout outs to Madare community leaders, where you are. Please, I can feel you. And I'm going to Mombasa in Kenya, in the coastal area. You are sitting there. Thank you so much, leaders in Mombasa. Please, thank you so much. We feel your energy. And then I jump to Nigeria, Abuja. Thank you so much, leaders there, for that. We feel you. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm here in Madare slums in Nairobi, Kenya, and we are so excited for another day of inspiring content. I'm not on the rooftop with our community leaders yet, as I am honored to be joined virtually by my brother, Edgar Villanueva, a renowned expert on social justice, philanthropy, and author of Decolonizing Wealth. Edgar, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm so impressed by how you are shaping the dialogue in the philanthropic world around racial justice. And your book, Decolonizing Wealth, speaks to me and relates to the World Communities Forum in so many ways. As you said, the dysfunctional colonial dynamics at play in philanthropy are so harmful. We can heal our divides and restore balance without action. I really love that. And as a person of color, this thing called this thing called us from them divide is something I have felt throughout my life and career. With the Global Alliance for Communities and the World Communities Forum, we are working to bridge this divide. So I'll start, and I would love to hear from you on how this can be done and should happen. So, my brother Edgar, welcome.
Thank you, Kennedy. Such an honor to be here as a part of the first forum. Congratulations to everyone involved in making this happen. And this work is so important. We have to bridge these divides because of global colonization. We have, policy, very intentional public policy, and the theft and extraction of resources from our communities and white supremacy. We do see there is a great divide: who has resources, who doesn't have resources, who has power, who doesn't have power. And in order to achieve balance, we've got to bridge that divide. We've got to shift the power. We've got to shift the resources. We've got to shift representation, shift who's making decisions in order to really get to a place where all of us can thrive in our communities.
I agree with you on that, because I feel like at this moment, what's happening around the world, this is the right time, because I feel the other side are willing to listen. So anyway, as you know, let's talk about this COVID a little bit. As you know, the pandemic has brought communities to their knees and has really increased inequality in a way that we can imagine. How do we learn from this, my brother?
It is. I agree with you that people are listening in a way they haven't listened before, because if there's any silver lining in what has happened with this global pandemic, is that everyone was impacted. We all felt the pain of, the inconvenience. We saw so much death in our communities. And for the first time in my lifetime, I felt like there was something really beautiful that came out of that. And that's a different type of solidarity I have never experienced. And I think it's that solidarity, that multiracial unity, and thanks to the movement for Black Lives, and really pushing through the conversation and with their demands, and after the murder of George Floyd, there's just a heightened awareness and sensitivity to what we already have known for years, right? In our communities, we've experienced this type of violence, this type of oppression. But the pandemic did bring that to light in a way that I think deeply impacted a lot of folks, and has created a space for a conversation for what has to change in order for us to move forward. I did see in the space of philanthropy a lot of changes that really inspire me, that make me hopeful, that we can continue to shift resources and trust community, and to put folks in community, at the head of deciding how we bring solutions to our communities in a self-determined way. More and more of that happened in 2020, and I hope that philanthropy does not revert back to the old way, but we keep moving forward in the right direction.
Thanks so much. Really, that's so powerful. And as you said, I feel like the pandemic has really just been an eye opener. You know what I mean? To see the inequality that exists, so which could never really, we could never really see that before. And it's a high time for us to keep on really pushing and fighting for change, because it's the moment. So anyway, and I bring something else that you talked about, as you said, the approaching your, the thing you talk about, colonizing your wealth, colonizing wealth, which is one of the compassion thing you talk about, was the way, the native way is to bring the oppressor into the circle of healing. Man, that's so powerful. You to bring the oppressor in the circle of healing. Tell me about that, please. It's really, I think it's powerful, and we need that at this moment, if they're willing to listen.
We really need it. You know, we need in indigenous communities, Black communities, other communities around the world, we definitely need our own healing, right? From what we've been through, from generations of oppression. But violence, racial violence and oppression also impacts the oppressor, right? And the oppressor absolutely has to have their healing in order for these cycles of abuse to not continue. And so my work is about healing in my community, but also inviting those white folks, to be frank, into a circle of healing as well, because this violence has been long, colonization and violence and power struggles have been existing between white communities long before it was exported to the United States, to my community. And so there has to be a healing for this cycle to stop. And I think if we can find the grace to come together. There is a time to fight. I don't want to be unclear. There's a time to fight and a time to stand up and a time to push back. But if we can find the space to come together and recognize that we all have experienced pain, we all have trauma of some sort or some kind that needs to be dealt with, we might just find the opportunity for some collective healing. We can heal in our own way, but we're not going to get to a comprehensive society that healing and thriving until we all do that work.
I really agree with you on that, because if I start feeling what's happening around the world, and you see the idea of localization, and I think like even the big foundation that really messed up a lot for not funding the locals, there's this moment of healing happening, and I really agree with you. I feel there's healing, there's reflection. People are reflecting. Community leaders in the slums, in the villages, they're also like, we have to heal. Plus the leaders themselves. So I feel, yes, I think something's happening. So I really agree with you. There's a time to fight. The time to be like, you know what? We have to heal. If you heal and you heal, then we can have a collective healing, and that will bring the solution, which is impactful. So, brother, thank you so much, Edgar. Your voice and expertise are so inspiring and give us the energy to tackle hard questions together. So I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, wow, the healing. That was so powerful. There's a time to fight. There's a time to reflect and look for that healing. And I think we're in the moment of healing, and we're going to see change. So let's move into our day 2 programming, where we are going to show you my amazing community Madare. You'll see them soon, and they move into a conversation I was fortunate enough to have with Darren Walker and with Dr. Fala and Glenys, where we dig into how we create an equitable future together. This is a topic that is so important and cannot wait. Just like yesterday, we have some amazing spotlights of community solutions throughout the day. More visits to our live viewing stations and more big conversation. And we want to hear from you. Just like yesterday, we'll be asking you some questions via the event homepage later today. Please take part. And please remember our collaborative workshops at the end of the day. Yesterday, we saw some inspiring outputs, and we like more today. We can enter through the chat at the end of the day. You can enter through the chat at the end of the day of the program. You see it there. So, after all that, I want to now, let's do this together. I'm just so excited. Thank you. Good. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Darren Walker, and I serve as president of the Ford Foundation, a global social justice philanthropy. And today I'm delighted to welcome you to this World Communities Forum, where you are in for a treat. You'll hear from three of the most powerful, exciting, and impactful leaders working in communities on the front lines, addressing issues of health and wealth and race. Let me tell you about our three guests. First, there is Kennedy Odede. Kennedy is founder and CEO of Shining Hope for Communities, also known as SHOFCO, based in Kenya. As one of Africa's best-known community organizers and social entrepreneurs, he dreamed of changing his community at a young age. With only 20 cents and a soccer ball, he started SHOFCO. And although he was entirely informally educated, Kennedy received a full scholarship to Wesleyan University, becoming one of Kibera's first to receive an education from an American liberal arts institution. Over the years, Kennedy has been awarded many accolades for his groundbreaking work in the community, including the Dell 2010 Social Innovation Competition, the 2010 Echoing Green Fellowship, and being named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list for top social entrepreneurs in 2014. His work has been featured by President Bill Clinton, Madonna, Beyonce, and on multiple occasions by Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times. And his book, A Path Appears, is a must-read. Kennedy speaks 6 languages, is a senior fellow with Humanity in Action, and an Aspen Institute New Voices Fellow. He is also a young global leader at the World Economic Forum and an Obama Foundation Africa leader. Welcome, Kennedy.
Thank
Next
you.
is an icon, Dr. Mosoka Fala, founder and executive director of Refuge Place International. He has started this amazing NGO in Liberia, created to address issues of access to quality, affordable healthcare that impacts maternal and infant mortality in that important country. In 2017, he was awarded the USAID Liberia Health Worker and the Development Person of the Year Award for his work at RPI. Dr. Fala is the former general director of the National Public Health Institute of Liberia. He co-founded in 2017 this organization, and he has dealt with on the front lines the 2014-15 Ebola outbreak that resulted in 11,400 infections and 4,600 deaths in that country alone. For his work, he has been awarded and recognized on many occasions. He was named a Time Person of the Year in 2014. He led the establishment of the first Master of Public Health program at the University of Liberia, where he once served as chair of the biochemistry department. Dr. Fala's extensive experience includes development work and consultancies with USAID, with the President's Malaria Initiative, the WHO, UNDP, Doctors Without Borders, and Action Against Hunger. Over his career, he has won and been awarded several prestigious national and international awards. Welcome, Dr. Fala.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
And finally, we have Lenice Pagan Ortiz, who is the executive director of Philanthropia Puerto Rico. In 2018, she began working there as its chief operating officer. And in 2019, she was promoted and named its executive director. Previously, Glenise co-founded Harimau Conservation, a nonprofit focused on empowering communities through conservation and education programs in Indonesia and Puerto Rico. Harimau won the Innovation Prize at Fundación Banco Popular's hackathon and contributed to Puerto Rico's recovery from the devastation of Hurricane Maria in 2017 by installing 41 water purification towers where they were needed. Glenise has been a consultant to Net Hope, a humanitarian organization working with the community-based organization Information as Aid. Welcome, Glenise, and welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
This is an inspiration for me just to read your bios, your commitment, your contributions, and the difference you're making in communities. But we want to get right down to hearing from you. And so my job here is just to facilitate your brilliance and allow people to hear your passion and the difference you're making. So let me start by acknowledging that we're in this moment of COVID, the crisis, the humanitarian situation that each of you knows firsthand in your own community. So let me ask this first question. What are you seeing on the ground in your communities that is missing from the high-level conversation amongst elites about the work that you do and the moment we are in? And Kennedy, I will start with you.
Thank you so much, Darren. And I'm so happy to have my fellow leaders at the grassroots level. So Darren, what's happening really is that there is no connection on what's happening at a high level on the ground. And it's because that most of the time people forget those who are bringing things on the ground. And when COVID really hit us hard, you know that very well that some of the people we serve in the community don't have those luxury of stocking the food, their healthcare, so it was really tough for them. And COVID did not become what is something that really shows us the inequality that is existing. And then right now, as we're having the vaccine plan, I see there is a fear that the most vulnerable in the communities are going to be forgotten. So they don't know what's going to happen next. So I feel like people have to listen, policymakers have to listen to what's happening on the ground for us to have a long-lasting solution. And quickly, I saw what happened around the country and in Africa, even in America, when COVID hit us. Community organizers on the grassroots level were the one really fighting hard and passing the information, and yet they don't get recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenise.
Yes, I'd say what am I seeing in the communities? In Puerto Rico specifically, we've had a couple of years of different situations, from bankruptcy to the hurricane to the earthquakes, and then COVID came along. So there is like, we're tired, but like echoing what Kennedy was saying, community leaders are active. They're there. What I have seen, there is a different perspective, because in COVID, we have had this global, everybody's on the same note. So there has been a different perspective of global looking at solutions, global way of looking at solutions. And I've seen that happening from our side in our communities in Puerto Rico, and that has brought a lot of different solutions, like with energy or with water, just because there's a little perspective of it's not us alone, we're going through this whole thing together. And so there's a perspective there that I'm sure it's going to come as a change in the future for us all.
Thank you. And Dr. Fala, you have lived through Ebola. You have been a person who has served to connect the grassroots with the grass tops. What's your perspective on this question?
That's a good question. Before COVID, I always used to say that Ebola had, in spite of its devastation, there was always a silver lining in the dark clouds. And one of those silver linings in the dark clouds of Ebola was the strengthening of the community structure. the community leadership from a point of resisting authority to a point of trying to mobilize their own inner resources. And so when COVID started, the nations of Africa did a great job. They took some decisive actions with the lockdowns and other stuff. But what that did is exacerbated the suffering of these people because, like the West Point community, where there's limited water supply, people have survived on a daily basis. And with the curfew, the suffering got intensified. But I was able to visit those communities.
I'm sorry, we've lost Dr. Fala. But Kennedy, while we're waiting to have him return, I would be curious to hear from you about the gap and what it will take to fill the gap between the grassroots, the people in communities, and these institutions that feel remote and don't always feel responsive to the needs of people like you. So please tell us how you see this.
Yes. So thank you, Darren. I see something different because I feel like COVID is terrible virus, but at the same time, it has opened our eyes. Like in Kenya, government of Kenya now are really so concerned because it was able to expose the inequality that used to exist. And nobody really paid attention to it. So I think at this moment, I'll just encourage community leaders to keep on. I remember I met the Minister of Health, and last week I also met the person in charge of vaccines, trying to find out what can we do better, which truth be told, that could have never happened before. So I see the work that's been done on the ground with leaders, like Dr. Fala, is that they have shown the world that we can do it. And those who are really living the life experience of what's happening in the community has the solution. So what we need to do is that it's good important to have those who are doing things on the ground to sit on the table. And when you say, Darren, what's happening now? There is a gap. And it's upon the government, it's upon people like you to keep on preaching that, so that if we don't bring them on the table, how do we know how to solve their problems? So I see that, and I'm really hopeful, and I'm so happy that the way the world is going, things are changing. And we have to keep on the momentum. And I'm asking everyone who's trying to support the communities to really try to listen. And listening is by bringing people to be on the table.
Thank you, Kennedy. Dr. Fala, I'm so happy that you can continue, please, what you were responding to my question.
Yes, like I said, so some of the actions the countries took, like my country, in order to control or prevent the COVID from amplifying, I think it was driven by some of the fear from Ebola. It was good and well-intentioned, except that the disadvantaged poor communities suffered the most because then hunger intensified, there's an issue of lack of water and everything. But in spite of those challenges, what I saw as I visited those communities, during the Ebola, we organized communities and we gave them T-shirts. They were able to bring back those T-shirts, dust them up. They were wearing them. They were innovative. They were creating hand washing from buckets and gallons, creating their own hand washing tools before we even got to them. For me, that was a good sense that they had learned their lesson from Ebola and realizing that they have to unite themselves and be innovative. So we saw that they were out there trying to protect themselves. We saw a big change. They were not resisting authority. They had accepted the reality of COVID and were working within their limited resources to protect themselves.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And Glenice, from where you sit there in Puerto Rico, what is the way forward to bridge that gap as Kennedy was addressing?
And I think just echoing what Kenny, they need to be at the table. And this is a lot of what I do in my work in philanthropia. I always say I'm a connector and I'm a convener, right? So always looking to connect people and just to convene people, not only to talk about the solutions, but I've noticed that it's important for us all to be at the table, really to identify the problem on occasion. Because once you really identify the problem, it's easier to get a solution with everybody. But I spend most of my time just really being like, have you heard about this? Have you seen this? We should get together. Let's talk about this. I know this is difficult, but let's just come together. I spend a lot of time bringing people together, not necessarily in formal ways of bringing them at a table, but just in different ways, because I think this is when we start closing that gap, right? That you just bring them together. It's not going to happen in the first time, but slowly we continue to talk. And I think Kennedy was saying this as well, that this has given us the opportunity to really start being more aware from each side of talking about things we are not comfortable about, or that we're not comfortable maybe because we don't know, because they're not in our mindset. And we're starting to have, I'm positive, just like Kennedy, because we're starting to have more awareness on all parts to start having better conversations. That's really bringing the gap. It's really those.
Glenise, I must ask you, from the perspective of philanthropy, often the convening is not done with the people most impacted at the center. The convening is convening of elites. It's convening of people who are parachuting in to the community, and the people who are in the community are often overlooked. How do we address that reality?
Yeah, I think that with organizations like Filantropía Puerto Rico, this is what we live for. And this is kind of how I ended up in. I don't feel myself that I am part of philanthropy, even though I'm the executive director of a philanthropy support organization. But I learned the value very quickly of having to insert certain people or certain problems or conversations in those elite gatherings. So it's interesting because I do my work now in an organization that serves philanthropy, but with a very, I'd say, aware agenda of bringing those people into the conversation, into the awareness. And that's really what Hurricane Maria and now COVID and all the things that in Puerto Rico we've gone through is, and how I got into philanthropy again. It's like, hey, you need to speak with this person. Have you noticed what this is happening? You guys are talking in closed doors. We need to start going out and looking at what other people are doing and what ideas are happening. And that's my focus.
Thank you. Then just to add on Glenn, what she has said is really, I agree with her, is that they're connecting and how we can learn from each other. Because what happened is that I've been fortunate enough to go to all these, I won't say the names, okay? The lead together. And it's the same thing. And it's nothing really impactful. And that's why I'm so happy to have leaders here with me who, with this kind of thing, in this world forum that we are trying to bring together leaders. And then for this to succeed, we need a radical change in front of people. And especially people of color, and people from the South, it's been so much tough. And people, leaders like you and allies like you, Darren, are important. I remember very well when you joined Ford Foundation and you made a radical decision called the Build. Because you knew as a man of color what communities on the grassroots level are going through. They are not like the others one that are well-funded. They are from hand to mouth. They don't know what to, the people need data, M&D. How do they do it? Nobody want to fund that. So Darren, I'm really proud of you for the Build.
Yeah.
You are very nice, Kennedy, but this is not about me. This is about the three of you. And I
want to add something.
I do believe, though, that I want to turn to Dr. Fala now, because we are talking about community-based solutions, and each of you are advancing community-based, community-centered solutions. Dr. Fala, as you sit in the important chair that you do, with the view of the world, both local and global, what is your assessment of what is needed as the next step in changing the paradigm? We need a new paradigm. Kennedy has asserted we need radical change. What do you think about this, Dr. Fala?
Thank you very much. Kennedy and my colleague have already spoken about it. The danger we face in changing is that we think we know the solution for the people that are going through the problem. We always think for them. And so that was the first mistake I realized from the Ebola, that led to the military intervention, and I got involved. When I got involved with the community from Ebola, I had 3 questions. What is your problem with the response? And I would sit down to them, they would tell me their frustration, and I would summarize all of the solutions and all the problems, and I would ask them, please propose for me solutions. And the community would join me in proposing solutions. And then I would say, okay, now, can you join me in solving this problem? Because they identified the problem, proposed the solution, and they saw that I was empowering them for the solution. We succeeded in building trust. These people know the solution. And then let me fast forward to COVID-19. When I decided to go back to the communities to listen to their problems the same way and how to find solution, one of the problems I had was how do they produce masks for the poor people who cannot afford it? I said, you propose to me. They said, okay, we have tailors in the slums, we have seamstresses. You buy the material for us, give it to us, we will sell them for a marginal profit, so we get the economy going. And then the second thing I learned when I sat down with the community was, I went to visit a clinic, and they wrote no masks, no entry, which means if you did not wear masks, you wouldn't enter. You would be surprised to note it was from that little community in that slum that I took the concept and I developed a national no mask, no campaign for the country. So if you went to hotel today, you went to stores, everywhere I brought the ministers of transport together, the police, the justice ministry. I said, I learned this from West Point. They have this in their community saying no masks, no service, no masks, no entry. And we launched a very successful campaign. There were nowhere you went in Monrovia, in the capital, everywhere that you did not see it. On Texas and Vigo, guess where I learned it? In the communities. Going there, sitting with them, finding a solution that have kept them surviving, can really inform. So it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship, bilateral relationship, and not going as the expert, as knowing the solution. Those people have wisdom. They know how to innovate. I think when we listen to them, we are going, like I said, with the no mask campaign. We got it from them, and we're able to amplify it across the country. So it has to be a bi-directional solution. But it's a mindset. We have to tell ourselves that these people have capacity, they can think, they can innovate. And then when we approach them with that respect, they respect us, and the environment is created for exchange of knowledge that benefits the society, the country, and the world.
Indeed, you're speaking to the inherent wisdom that lies within communities. If we dignify their knowledge, you don't need to have a PhD from Harvard, the public health school, to know what you just described from the community. They knew the solution, and you were able to take that solution and scale it. Now, let me ask you, Glenys, as someone who looks at this challenge of scaling, how do you think about moving from just the small project to helping philanthropy to scale?
I mean, well, that's easy. That's bringing them together, right? I think that's the way to go. And that's what we do. How to bring them together, that's harder, right? But then again,
what skills do you use as a philanthropist? You have a set of skills, obviously, Glenys, you've been successful. What skills are you using to bring people together that you think make a difference?
Well, in COVID, it's been Zoom, but I'd say phone calls. It's very different to bring people together in a conference and put community at the center in this big conference versus really having smaller, just very natural conversations. And let's come together and let's go out in the community and meet this person. That's not so easy to do with philanthropy, right? And in Puerto Rico, and we have a special case, but probably in Africa, it's similar. You know, we have our local philanthropy. They know very well their area. They're here, they're strong. And then we had, like you said, a lot of people that came in since Hurricane Maria with good intentions, but everybody has a different agenda. But that is the way to scale up. I need to bring all these people together. I need to leave them with Puerto Rico in their mind. And obviously, globally, it's difficult. But it's showing them solutions. And I'll give you like a small example of community-led initiatives that kind of work. And then invites philanthropy to come together and scale up. At least this is how I see it. In Puerto Rico, we lost electricity, full electricity, when Hurricane Irma and Maria hit. So this is an issue, and government and corruption and all the other details we're not going to give, but that we might be all aware in our different areas. They're coming to fossil fuel solutions, gas solutions that are going to put us in debt for a long time. The community is saying we want renewables, we want sun, right? This is their proposal. And their proposal is, let's put rooftop solar in all the roofs that exist in Puerto Rico. You can be an owner, you might not want to be an owner, but you can be an owner in all roofs. Because when we think about renewable, we probably think about these massive planes with all these solars, or the windmills, and we're an island. We don't have space for that. So it wasn't until the community came in and saw the problem in a different way and designed it differently that a solution came in, and then philanthropy, you just kind of enamor them and say, hey, this is the real deal. We're really democratizing energy. It's not centralized how it is now. We're not designing the system how it currently is, but in a renewable way. We're really just looking at it differently. And that's very community-led, and it's an opportunity to show that, and then philanthropy can come together, and it scales, it impacts. They come together, they impact, they scale bigger. So that's, I think, a great example that we have here, that we have been able to have success stories.
Thank you. I want to pivot to talk in these last few minutes about, first, the response with the COVID vaccination to ensure that we are moving beyond conversations about Europe and North America. We have billions of people in the global South who are vulnerable to this horrific pandemic, this disease. How do we ensure that there is equitable distribution of the vaccine across the South? And Dr. Fala, as a public health expert, how do we do that? Who is responsible? Who do we advocate with? Who do we hold accountable to ensure that there is equitable distribution?
Step one, we hold each of us responsible. We are common humanity. We are joined by a single thread. No matter our wealth, no matter our skin color, we are humanity. We have the same feeling. We feel the same. Is that human thing that keeps us going as one human being? That's one. The second issue that is bothersome for me is that I'm so much involved in this advocacy, someone coming from the South, is that we have this thing driven by so much fund money. I think Modena made 18.4 billions. We can have a world where everything about us is accumulating of massive wealth in the midst of pandemic. And so the issues we look at are very much that we have vaccine nationalism. There are countries, for example, Canada, that have taken 500% of the doses needed for its population. Almost all of the contract for vaccine has been taken by the West. 80 to 90% of the vaccine has been taken by the West, more than they need. Whereas they distributed vaccine in Ivory Coast, in Ghana, and in Liberia. Liberia has 4.7 million people, 96,000 doses. Ivory Coast has around 27 million, 500,000 doses. Ghana has 30 million, 600,000 doses. At the current rate of vaccine distribution, it will take us 4.8 years to bring vaccine to the global south. Time is not in our favor. The variant strains are growing. Now there are evidences that are showing that basically if these strains grow, whatever vaccine we create will not be efficacious. They will not even protect those who are vaccinated. So there are a couple of things we are asking the world. One, for once in your life, is there a way you can redistribute or share the IP, intellectual property, so that it's not guided so much by profit? Can you share the technology? Because South Africa and India has already asked for the IP, but they were denied at the last World Trade Organization conference. They are saying, give us the IP, we can manufacture vaccine. That's one. The countries that are getting the vaccine hoarding, the Canada and most of the countries that are hoarding vaccine, those vaccines will become less effective if we have a resistant strain. Give it to the poor. That's the other option there. Try to make donations to this country, because I have to say, to the credit of the African country, they went through a lot to protect themselves. They shut down their airports, their land, they had curfew. So that has heavily impacted the economies. They cannot afford, for example, the Moderna vaccine is $28 per dose. The Pfizer vaccine is about $15 per dose. They cannot afford it. So for our own shared humanity, for our own shared survival, we need to share the RP, the technology, those that are holding need to give, and some form of donations need to give. Even the World Bank need to give some funding so there is a market. This is a critical humanity. In the absence of that, for me, I can't sleep to imagine that one group have so much excessive vaccine and that one group has none. A question about humanity. We are human beings, we feel the same. No matter my skin color, I may be poor. I want the same thing you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fala. I think the world needs to hear your voice. That was so powerful. Kennedy.
Yes, thanks so much, Dr. Fala. That was very powerful. I agree with you. Yes, and it's really so sad that the West talked about globalization when it's only benefiting them. And then when the vaccine comes in, it's about nationalism. I'm so mad about it. I'm Dr. Fala. It's so sad. And I want to tell the American citizens, I want to tell the Canadian citizens, it's upon you now to wake up and say the world cannot be a better place if we forget other countries. Firstly, it is also Darren. The people of color in Brooklyn or in tough neighborhoods, they didn't exist. People in the slums in Liberia, West Point, Kenya, Kibera, they don't travel. You know what I mean?
No.
And right now, they're the ones suffering most.
Yes.
So we cannot just preach and talk about it all the time. We have to work on it. Kenya got, I think, 2 million doses. We are almost 50 million. So there's an unfair game. And the vaccine equity is something that is really interesting. It has a multiple faults. Think about it. I just saw in America the ratio between the people of color and the whites. So Darren, it's a challenge in America. What do you think about Africa? If already in the US you can see the equality. So I'm telling you, Darren, we are in a very tough moment. And the only who will help us is the leaders, parliamentarians, Congress, Senate has to be like, no, we can't take it all. We are not safe. We are not safe. That's my message.
A call to action. Thank you, Kennedy.
Yeah.
So as we have just a few minutes, I want to ask each of you the following question. What gives you hope? Are you hopeful in this moment? Let's start with you, Glenys. Are you hopeful in this moment from where you sit?
I am hopeful. If not, I wouldn't be doing the work, right? There's always a positive vision. I truly think that the world is changing. We're changing. We're coming together. At least I decide to see it that way. We are much more aware of inequalities, of situations, not only in our little community, but globally. And we need to change that, just like Dr. Fala was saying, we need to start seeing each other as human. And I trust that we're going in that direction, and that will just change our mindset and how we treat each other, how we treat the planet, and how we interact. So that brings me hope. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but we're in that direction.
Thank you, Glenys. Dr. Fala, are you hopeful?
I am hopeful every day. I mean, just this platform is a hope. The fact that Kennedy will reach out to us. In fact, the first network meeting that Kennedy had that I joined, as I listened to people all across different communities in the North sharing their experience when we had the first meeting that Dr. Kennedy hosted on this global forum, I was inspired that in all of the challenges, every nook and corner on this planet, someone is moving to make a change. Someone feel a moral obligation. That gives me a hope that the platform that the Global Community Forum will give me, that we are using our innovation to come together. And even the advocacy group that I created for us to advocate for the vaccine, I have doctors from all planets, they feel the same. Those from the South that I worked with, doctors and scientists, they all feel the same. So we have people that share the pain that we share. And you know, someone said revolution started when 5% of any group decided to make a change. And I think we are more than 5%. We say the same language, we feel the same things. Because of that, I have hope that we're going to make this world a better place. We have to do it for our survival, for our humanity. And so every time, whether it is a Black and African, different people, I see good people there, people with aspiration for a better world that sort of appeal to my sense of humanity. That gave people that there are several others like me on this planet that want to make this world a better place for all of us and our children.
Kennedy, what about you? Are you hopeful? If you're not, why not?
I am hopeful, and it is driven by technology. Dr. Fowler told me that we'll never know what's happening in Canada, the vaccine. But because of social media technology, we can see this. We have seen how police, Black Lives Matter, they were treating people in America. Darren, many years ago, could be secret. Nobody could know. So right now, we are doing what is called Global Alliance. We're forming it with other grassroots leaders like Dr. Fowler and Glenis. Why? Power of technology. We can bring our voice together. The only thing I say is that let's keep fighting. Let's not stop it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I must say that this first inaugural World Communities Forum is a much needed intervention in the world today, because this is a time when it is sometimes difficult to be hopeful. And yet, when I look at the three of you, I see in your faces passion, a commitment to justice, a belief in the dignity of the communities you serve, and understanding that the solutions that the world needs are there in those communities. And you recognize that through authentic leadership, through leadership that reflects the communities that you serve, it is possible to imagine a future with more justice, a future with more equity, more equality. So I feel, as the president of the Ford Foundation, very hopeful because I know that hope is the oxygen of democracy. It is the oxygen of optimism that allows us to believe, allows us to dream. And the three of you are dreamers, for sure. But the three of you are doers. You are making a significant difference in your community and in the world at large. And your message is a message that is a call to action, a call to urgently address the issues of inequality, injustice, discrimination, bias that exist in the world. And it is a call to action to those in power, to hold us accountable, to deliver on our mission to serve, our mission to reduce poverty and inequality, to improve health outcomes and the like. And your words are making a difference. Your leadership is being heard. And because of that, the world will be a better place, and we can imagine a post-COVID world that is more just, that is more fair, that is more equal, because of the work of people like you. So on behalf of all of my colleagues at the Ford Foundation, I want to thank you for your courage, your wisdom, your creativity, and your willingness to be vulnerable in the face of powerful interests, but your unwavering commitment to deliver for your communities. So thank you. It's been my honor to serve as the moderator of this inaugural World Communities Forum.
My name is Julius Mbea. I am the co-CEO of Luala Community Alliance. Luala was founded by a community that believed that it was unjust not to receive the best quality healthcare. The community got together to create the first health clinic in the area, and out of that work, we have moved into a holistic program that addresses maternal and child health. We work with community health workers drawn from traditional midwives or TBS. These are women who have been delivering care to their families for generations but are ostracized from the health system. We train them to become community health workers, give them digital tools to work with, and then deploy them to track and treat every sick person in the community while providing essential referral for advanced care in the primary care facilities. The community health workers are able to work with the woman from preconception, ensuring that when they get pregnant, they attend all their antenatal care visits, they deliver at a facility, and then follow the child until the child is 5 years. In that process, they ensure that the child is receiving their specified immunizations and at the same time achieving the growth milestones that they so desire. I am going to give this opportunity to one of our community health workers who is right now in the communities that we serve. Millicent has been core to our COVID-19 response and will play a major part in COVAX rollout. Over to you, Millicent.
My name is Millicent Meruka. I'm a community health worker working in Migori County, Rongo Sub-County, North Kamagambo, North Kamwango CU. My roles as a community health worker is to sensitize the community members on good health practices, sanitation, and even to refer them to the facility for further care. The biggest challenge that we faced at the start of COVID-19 pandemic, one, COVID really interfered with our normal meeting of community health workers, and we could not even visit the household level because the clients, we had to meet them face to face for our visitation to be successful. But we could not make it. It was very difficult. Initially, we did not have the PPEs. We did not have even the knowledge on how to prevent and control COVID pandemic infections. My clients back in the community were really affected by this pandemic. Movement was restricted. No one could move from here to there. And even there was a lot of anxiety and misinformation about COVID-19. But all in all, we were very happy with Luala Community Alliance that came up with the training, and we as the community health workers, we were trained, and we were also provided with the PPEs for our protection back in the community. And from there, we could continue with our normal duties. Over the last years, we were working together with the communities to defeat this pandemic. But I had one client who was affected. When she was not feeling well, she had some cough, she had some difficulties in breathing, and when she was referred to the facility, she was tested positive. And the client she was having a very big stigma, and even the community members could not reach her just because they were afraid of this disease. But as a community health worker, I was assigned to go and visit this client. I maintained, and I was giving health talk. I was encouraging the client to wash her hands every day, every now and then, wear a mask, and even keep social distance. And the client maintained all these procedures. And when I visited the client, she was initiated to Luala's socio-economic support that was providing her with the food together with her family. And all in all, I was doing my monitoring because I was visiting the client in the morning and even in the evening, doing all the processes that have been taught. And through all these things, the client, when she went to the facility, she turned negative and she was very happy. And the client was the first person to spread the word of this pandemic. She was teaching people in the community to wear a mask, to keep social distance, and even to wash their hands every now and then. As a community health worker, I've heard of this COVID vaccine, and we as the community health workers, we are the frontliners, and we need to be considered just like the other healthcare workers. And we are very happy, and we need also to be considered as the healthcare workers. Otherwise, thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, what a time to be alive. I think that if there's anything we cherish today, it is the fact that hope seems to be rising around our world because together we are standing against this virus that has caused a lot of pain, whether in terms of livelihood or in terms of lives. And today, we are going to have very fantastic people who have been at the front tiers of everything that communities are doing to stem the tide of the impact of COVID-19 on people and communities. Together today, I am joined by an incredible cast of not just talkers, but doers who have dedicated their lives to this very important aspect that we seldom remember, which is that all politics is local, all governance is local, all economies are local, and that at the end of the day, nothing about the statistics that we very much cherish, I in particular love analytical and empirical evidence, but behind those numbers are real human beings. And so we're going to be discussing about the human being at the community level where it matters most. Our session today is economic recovery from the grassroots up. And this session gives us the opportunity to look at what's going on around communities that were brought to their knees as a result of COVID-19. As the vaccines begin to roll out globally and health begins to become more stable, the economic recovery front of mind is at the heart of the matter and every conversation around the world today. Grassroots organizations are leading from the ground up, harnessing the strength of the communities to drive local job recovery. We want to explore what is working. We want to know how to replicate the best practices that have been found around the world. We need to know what we all have to do in order to drive the recovery from the grassroots up, but to do it in a way that we achieve speed and scale. And so joining me today would be George Gachi. George Gachi is well known for the work that he does in Nairobi, Kenya, as project officer, UN Habitat, and is a founder of a very significant grassroots organization known as Matter Roots Initiative. George, you want to wave to the audience? We need to make this animated, even though it is visual. So I want some action on the part of our panelists. Welcome, George. And the second person is Innocent Magambi. Innocent is a founder, or rather the founder of There Is Hope, Malawi. Malawi is a country that I know very well because I had been an economic advisor to President Banda. And so I know how tough it is to actually do work at the local level, bringing hope to the community. So please join me in welcoming Innocent Magambi of Malawi for the work that he does. And our third panelist is Dr. Well, oh, I didn't do this. I certainly didn't do this. I have one of those complex names, and when people don't pronounce them well, I don't normally give them an A, and I'd love to get an A from our speaker, Dr. Wutarain Lane. Did I get that right? You're going to have to correct me, Batten, and You know, she works for the Institute for Development Studies and Practices in Pakistan. Her work is very renowned. And so it is such a pleasure to have her, Doctor, being on this program with us. So here we are. I am Obi Ezekwesili, and just simply know me as one who is passionate about seeing those at the bottom of the pyramid break through the barriers and enjoy the economic mobility that is important for us to have a world that is just, equitable, and equal. So welcome. I will start by letting the audience know that across the spectrum of conversations that we'll be holding during the World Communities Forum conversations are two critical pillars that we seek to explore. What are you seeing on the ground in your communities that is missing from high-level conversations or mainstream representations of society? And so I would start with that and quickly go around my panelists. What is it that when you say the people gather at the World Economic Forum, you wish they were discussing? I'll start with you, our dear doctor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obi. You did excellent well with my name. Thank you.
You're so gracious.
It's beautiful what you said. Love it. The question itself is so inspirational and so much to my heart. I was once upon a time, not long back, in the World Economic Forum, or it was some kind of in San Francisco Economic Forum I was invited to. And then I raised a question that they were talking about infrastructures and roads and market and economy and buildings and all those things. And I just raised my hand and I just said, well, you can have all the infrastructure you want, but when there are no people, when there are no people to use it, are not ready to use it, what are you going to do with it? This is not what they're asking for. And we do not know what, do they need that? Will a road will change their lives? How is it going to affect? And I wanted to find out what is the economy of the physical infrastructure? How is it going to affect the lives in the communities? And I got no answer. That was quiet. And it was they responded to some other questions. What I would like to see to be discussed at the higher forums is that the gaps that has been left by the formal education system, which is excluding the majority young people from mainstream education. What are you doing about those gaps? When you train a midwife and you do not give her any exposure in the labor room, in the delivery, but you are giving her a credential, a certificate, a certified midwife, what are you doing about that gap that she's still not working because she has no experience of practice? How are you arranging the practices of community-based midwives? How are you looking at when the teacher in the schools that you have established, which are half-baked, which are not owned by the communities, which is where the learning is so alienated from the reality of the children and of the community? How are you filling that gap? And I do not see this SGD's things that is going on. I do not see that they're relating to it in an integrated way. They have frame each SGD objective in itself in a box. They're talking about how to bring the schools. I was in one of the forum, member of a forum in Pakistan, in Balochistan, on education. And they had written a document on policy document which says that more than 50% of the children are out of school, or they're not 60%, sorry, 60-70%, and majority girls. And then somewhere they write the poverty is one of the reason. And then later on somewhere it says that nutrition is an issue, and then they do not talk about it at all in the actual program. And when I asked them that why school nutrition is not part of the school system, they said, oh, we have another SDGC discussing about nutrition and health, but not as part of in the school.
That's very telling, and I think that somebody who knows exactly what you're saying would definitely be innocent, Magambi, because this matter of the silo approach to conceiving of development frameworks is something that Malawi has battled with for many decades. Innocent, maybe you want to continue from where the good doctor ended.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be part of this conversation. And I mean, I'm just so happy that we have World Community Forums, because this is a place where our voices need to be heard. Otherwise, we are not heard, are not seen, and therefore we are not discovered. I was born a refugee in Congo. My parents came from Burundi, and 7 years later I was born. I grew up, hearing how rich my dad was back then, but only experiencing the poverty. I didn't wear shoes until I was 13. And I was conflicted growing up. I went to Burundi when I was 13 years old for the first time to see my home country, but it did not last. We were kicked out after 3 months of being in Burundi, came back to Congo. And 3 years later, they were started in Congo. I had to run on my own. I was 16 years old at that time. Went to Tanzania, Zambia, and to cut the long story short, I've lived in 5 refugee camps in Tanzania, in Congo, in Zambia, and Malawi. And when I was in Malawi, I just thought, I need to be the voice, because nobody can speak for refugees like me, because I have 27 years of experience of being a refugee. And that's when I ended up starting an organization called There Is Hope to support refugees really come out of their dilemma, but also, tell the world about how we are, not someone else telling our story. So far, we have done a lot of work that I'm really proud of. But what I would really like to see in those big forums is, it's an unfortunate part. It's like, the world has put systems, or every country is trying to put systems to make money transaction easy and viable from one end of the world to another, the same as goods and communication. However, on the other side, the movement of refugees, human beings, of migrants is becoming tougher and tougher. Some countries going to the extent of building massive walls. So where is the heart of humanity? Have we lost something? Those are some of the things that I really would like to be talking about, and but also showcasing the work that we are doing, where refugees are put in a silos, in a place, a corner. It's like a march, and they're not allowed to come out. But what our work, what is doing, is to really show them the other side of the coin, that absolutely we are human beings and we have gifts and talents, and we can contribute not only to the economy of the host country, but also to the economy of the world.
A very important theme that you have introduced into the conversation, which is that the human being is not given free passage as much as money is given free passage in the transactions that we have around the world, and that at the end of the day, just understanding the importance of community and the human life is really at the heart of what development is. And so if we're failing to do that, we need to have voices like yours in those places where these high-level conversations go on. Is that what you think, George? You are the UN Habitat. You could say that with the UN Habitat, you are already within that big institution where a lot of talking happens. Are you satisfied with the talking that goes on when the UN has all those big, dramatic events where everybody is looking very important and they discuss the same topic over and over again? How pleased are you, George?
Thank you so much, Dr. Obi. And as you correctly introduced me, my name is George Gashie. I am from Nairobi. I was born in the oldest informal settlements here in Nairobi. We call them slums. It's called Mathare. And I'm here representing Hope, just to show that you can also, come from the slums and be at the center also when it comes to discussing matters to do with development of our neighborhood. And thank you so much also to the Shofco team for this opportunity. Yes, I am wearing two hats today. One is that of being a community leader that is working towards improving the conditions of people living in slums and informal settlements, as to where I was born. And I'm also wearing that at the heart of working with an international organization, UN Habitat, as Dr. Obi mentioned. I work within the participatory slum upgrading program of UN Habitat, which is a partnership between the African, Caribbean, and Pacific group of states, UN Habitat, and the European Commission. So the program is implemented in over 40 countries in the ACP region, and really working to improve slums and informal settlements. I have had the opportunity of sitting in these big conferences. Just in last year, before the COVID-19, we had the World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi. So from our end, we've gone to an extent of introducing assembly. So we had a grassroots assembly before the World Urban Forum started. And during the grassroots assembly, we had we had leaders coming from different grassroots organizations, from different regions, sharing their experiences, and some of the recommendations that actually came from this grassroots assembly is to support and direct funding towards community-led activities. So to me, this is what I'm also pushing, to have community-led, grassroots-led activities and programs being funded. For example, in the slum upgrading program of UN Habitat, we have a component that we call the community managed funds. So the community managed funds, it's whereby a percentage of the project fund goes directly to the community, and the community comes up with activities and programs that are also going to support their livelihood. And because this will not be discussed often when it comes to when the government is discussing policies and infrastructure development, the community members at the grassroots level, they also need to have an income, and most of them will not get formal employment, and you need to support the informal economy. So one of the things that stands out for me is recognizing the role that the informal economy plays, and this has been exposed recently by this COVID-19 pandemic, where we had people who used to wake up early in the morning and go do their work, they turned out to be beggars, and depending on donation and people be giving them food. So for me, the most important thing that we need to discuss about is funding community-led projects, and also supporting the role of the informal economy towards prosperity of the cities and the country as a whole. Thank you, Dr. Obi. Back to you.
Thank you so much, George. I think you have segued us very well into the next conversation that I think we should be having. And that is, you talk about funding these the activities at the local level, and you talk about the informality of the economies of the communities being so detached from the formal economies in countries like, say, Kenya or Malawi or even Nigeria or Pakistan.
Yes.
And yet, between the place of funding and the place of the projects, there is something about even becoming aware of their existence. I would like to go the way we started with our dear doctor and ask her, do you actually think that solid community solutions to the problems that you have highlighted are finding recognition in the places where they should? Do you think that the world knows enough of the innovations that are going on at the community levels? And if we don't have that recognition, what do we do to get them right on the radar of everybody so that the rate of absorption of these solutions would be greater than what we currently see, in order to support their emergence into scaled operations that lift people quickly out of poverty?
Thank you. We have been empowering the young men and women in the communities, and young girls in midwifery skills, because mothers, there's no any outreach services as efficient as it should be. Balochistan has highest rate of maternal mortality. More than 700 mothers died during babies deliveries out of 100,000 live births. What we have done is more than 300 or almost 400 young women from 400 villages, we got them trained into real practices, and for 3-4 months, and now they are practicing very well in their own midwifery techniques. But what we found was that they were doing beautiful, heroic work, but the government did not really know about it, or even if they know about it, they wouldn't acknowledge it the way it should be and make it part of the system, that this refresher training is continued medical education is so important for the girls in the rural areas who are practicing midwifery. What we did when we saw this, and we went from pillar to post, making presentations to the secretary, to the governments and all, but they would keep asking and pushing it back into a syllabus kind of a thing. But this is in the syllabus, we do it. Please, you don't do it. It is not there. You're not doing it. It is in the syllabus, but it's not happening. We have to keep saying that. Finally, what we did is we added media training program for our midwives, and we have given them this tablet, and we have trained them on start recording everything and filming everything, and creating their own blogs and putting it out in the world, because now borders don't matter. After media, there are no borders. Everything is is global now. But that connection to the global is needed by individual to the globe, overcoming all boundaries, all nations, all bureaucracy, straight into the globe. And that is what our young boys, girls and boys, even our boys, that we have started because of COVID, to cover up the economic problems. So we have taken young people, boys and girls, into IT trainings, into entrepreneurship trainings, into office management trainings. And we have managed to get the scale down that even a 10th grader can come in these trainings. And we don't need 12th or bachelors and all that. So that is done, and we have managed to do that. But still, there are many who are not 10th grader even. So what do you do there? So we have started mashed up training with this government training, who are below, who have not done their 10th grade, and we are copying their training, the other one, into our informal way of training. So the ones who don't qualify in the government training program because they're not 10th grader, so they come to our training at the same time. So we are running two kinds. We are copying from there. So the knowledge is being transferred. Maybe not the cert, they might not get the certificate, but our institute gives the certificate then. So, but they get the knowledge, and today's world is not about certificates. It is about what you know. They're still into these certificates and pieces of paper and degrees. Nobody's asking these things these days. So we are competing and demonstrating continuously in public, not in government offices, but in public forums, which are led by the young people themselves. And we are there just making these presentations and bringing out this dichotomy. And this is we find this is a great gate crashing. You have to crash the gate.
I love that. I love the gate crashing part of it. Yes. I think it was Chisom, the first woman to run for president in the United States, that said, if they don't invite you to the table, why don't you just take your seat and just crash into that place and set up your seat at the table? So that's what you're doing. And I really love it. I love the fact that you got
and the internet. Yeah, and the internet, the digital world is there. You don't need any other thing. You don't need anyone.
So what I love is you instantly decided to bring attention. The women were taught how to bring attention to their work. So you empowered them to announce their work. And that's what the community must do. The community must force people to acknowledge that they exist, because technology offers the tool for that to happen.
Yes.
Innocent, what's going on in Malawi?
Just to add there, you're so right, and you're really making me so happy and excited, Doctor, that 11 of our midwives have been adopted by Pakistanis living in US, in Western world, and they are taken care, all their further education, their own issues, they're adopted by the philanthropic people across the globe directly.
Thank you so much. Innocent, you had that conversation. What did you think? Is that do you have a different model through which you are bringing attention to the innovations that you're doing? 27 years of knowledge as a refugee. You do have a lot to teach the world. And maybe they just think you're one man sitting somewhere in Malawi. How do we sort of bring this global thing, from the global level to the local, from the local level to the global? What do you think we should do in recognizing that your solutions have been really good for the world?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, for me, I see two things, because when we respond to our communities, it's not about teaching the world or telling the world. It's about our community. It's about lives. It's about, people there. So sometimes we take time to expose our work and celebrate outside, like let the world celebrate our work. However, I wanted to say too that there are two things. I mean, the world is full of people who are knowledgeable. You have scientists who have been able to, to make, microscopes and whatever thing that can detect viruses that are too small to be visible using the naked eyes. But unfortunately, it seems like our work is too small to be seen by those microscopes. So is it realistic? Is that true, or they just decided not to engage, not to see, because what is local ends at the local level and cannot inspire anybody else? So I feel like there is need for intentional searching, because we are not too small to be visible, but there isn't a willingness Number two, on our part, I think we also need intentional exposure. And that's why, for me, like World Communities Forum is, that's what it means. Like, it's like, okay, those invisible beings, or, let us expose them, because they have models and achievements that can teach the world, because we are responding to the community's needs. We know how to navigate to the problems, to the language, to the barriers, to mindset. But because we are not in the category of experts, unfortunately, we are not being searched after or looked after to say, okay, what can we learn from you? So there are intentions on both sides. Our side to really do what we can to launch ourselves, and forums like World Community Forums. There are several philanthropists who have done a great job. I have a huge example for Sigo Family Foundation. They have done exactly that. They fund, but also try to expose their champions. So there are work to do for both sides.
This is thumbs up, for the World Communities Forum. Even just this series of events lined up this year would go a long way at exposing what happens at the local level. I think that your point on intentional session on the part of formal institutions and organizations, as well as intentional and deliberate attempt at being exposed by yourselves. So we don't have communities sort of acting weak. The community is not weak. George, say something to us about that. The community is not weak. The community is strong. The community is powerful.
Oh yes, the community is very powerful.
How do we get the world to know what you're doing? How do we get more of that out there? How do we get them to accept that innovation is happening at the local levels, and that these innovations are important for lifting people out of poverty?
Thank you, Daktari. I will share what we are doing in Madare to just demonstrate that the communities are very strong. Through my youth initiative, the Madare Roots Initiative, we came up with because we realized during the COVID-19, when the COVID-19 hit us, that there was a lot of misinformation and false information going around the communities about this COVID-19. So we came up with an innovative way of educating the community. And we started using graffiti and murals, tapping into the local talent. The youth are very talented here with different talents. So we tapped into these talents to demonstrate that we can still use the local talents to reach out to the world. So our work has been recognized. We went ahead to paint over 20 walls in different locations. And these walls had messages about COVID-19, had messages on how to protect yourself, and like with the issue of washing hands, to just remind people to keep wearing their masks. And they were recognized just last year. Before the end of last year, the Human Rights Defenders, a group of Kenya, recognized our work, and Madare Roots Initiative was awarded the upcoming Human Rights Defenders of the Year because of that work. The same way, a lot of our work has been featured in global media, international press, even in publications as far as French publications. And this is just to show that we need to tap to the local talent, and how to make our work to be known and seen out there. We need to create partnerships. We need to create partnerships with like-minded organizations. We need also to bring in the private sector. We need to bring in this private sector partnerships also to support the work that is happening at the local level. For instance, we also partnered with sports people, athletes, to distribute face masks to the needies in the community. This is a kind of partnership that we need. These are international recognized celebrities partner with them, and then our work will also be known out there. But otherwise, if we just stay within our circles, then we can bet for sure that the work will only stay there. But we need to reach out also to international media and organization in order for our work to be seen out there. So thank you so much, Doctor. Back to you.
Thank you so much. You know, look, you're such an interesting panel, and I could just carry on with this conversation, listening to you. You're teaching us so much about, you know, what fantastic work you are respectively doing. One of the things that I have been told to ask you definitely is, you know, did you just get up one day and say, I'm going to be a community leader? Or was there something, was there a trigger moment that got you saying, I'm going to do this thing? Dr. Bakhtari, please tell us your story as quickly as possible, because I have one more round of questions for all of you after this round. So, and I've got just about 5 minutes. So please help me manage my time better than I've done. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll try to do my best. As a child, I was raised in a refugee camp. The country was created in 1947, and that is, I was born in 1949. I found myself in a huge community who was looking after each other, and a survival, looking forward to do everything right for the new created country and do their best. So I was really born in a struggling but a forward-looking attitude of a community. And as a child, I was raised not by my parents alone, but by the community. I was raised by the community because our parents were very busy. It was the whole community who was raising children of everybody. So we had just one small room, and who would stay in the room all day? Which child will stay? We just would play and sleep somewhere, and I used to find myself in my own bed. So that kind of a trust and loving care I have experienced all my childhood. So the foundation was laid in me to trust and love people unconditionally without any biases, and not to know them well before you reach out. I don't try to know people. I just go ahead. And as a woman, as a girl, as I was entering in my teens, restrictions started coming over me by my parents, not to go outside, not to be with the boys, not to be alone. And I was not used to hearing, you can't do it. I was not raised that way by the same parents who started doing otherwise to me. And that is what happened to me. No, I can't do it. I have been doing it as a child till 12 and 13. Amazing. I can do it still. And that is where I isolated myself in my mind from the powers of my parents, my adults, because they were trying to put me in a box. And I was raised without a boss, without boundaries, without gender sensitivity. I was raised on the street with the people, in the gullies, in the alleys.
Interesting story. Dr.
Yeah,
Bakhtari,
and
you should write a book.
That was my character. So I do not buy as a child till today. No, you cannot do it. You should not do it. This cannot be done. So these are enough words for me to go ahead and do what I want to do and what I believe.
Be a community leader, innocent, in 5 countries, just moving from one country to another country. It's a clear case of a person who has been through all kinds of vicissitudes of life. And yet you've got this spirit of can do, which is what Dr. Bakhtari was just speaking about. So you can see that it doesn't matter what region of the world you belong to, as long as you have that mindset of the kind that Dr. Bakhtari spoke about, you can be an innocent magam. Is that your story? Is that a summary of your story?
Yes, it is. I mean, I wrote a book called Refugee for Life, My Journey Across Africa to Find a Place Called Home. It tells it all, because in the journey, yes, there have been a lot of pain, a lot of frustrations, a lot of losses, but there is always someone who comes alongside and supports, whether in the refugee camp or wherever you are along the way. So with all the story that I said, how I was born and all the places I've been, and there was that sense of there have been someone who has shown up in the, in a crossroads of my life. And therefore, to really take that legacy further, I need to do something, because we will not always say thank you and return the favor to those who gave them to us, but we can pass them on to other people. So I call it a chain of hope. So that's what we do at There Is Hope. Everyone who is helped by our organization, we mandate them to do something good to at least one other person before they go to heaven. So
how amazing, channel of hope. You received hope, therefore you must give hope. The measure that you have received is the measure that you must give. Well,
that's the Bible.
I think that there is someone, that should be telling us a little bit about that, because, he got the opportunity of being in a fancy office at the UN Habitat, but his community didn't leave him. So he left the community, but the community didn't leave him. Tell me, why did you become both a community leader as well as a UN expert? Are you, the Habitat?
Thank you. Yes, and I would say they're related. I was born, it's very touching to hear a doctor and Innocent sharing their story, because mine is a bit different, but also similar in a way, because I was born, I found myself living in my grandparents' house in a slum neighborhood in the middle of Nairobi. Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, where when you read about Nairobi, you think like this is a wonderful place and all that, because they'll only tell you mostly about the positive side. So my grandparents moved to Nairobi, and my parents were born here, and I was born in Mathare, the slum. So I shared a room with my grandparents and 5 of their kids, including my mom. And therefore, the only thing that we had was the community. And this is a case. This is a similar story to many young people out there who were born in informal settlements and in slum areas. So really, I started volunteering at an early age. I started doing volunteer work, community work. We will do cleaning of the community, because it's our community. And through this, I joined a youth organization when I was about 15 years. And through this organization, I got to learn more about leadership and about community work. And I was lucky enough, because we didn't have opportunities to go to school, that through my work in the organization, I got a scholarship to go to college. And I decided that I would do development studies, because I wanted to go back and support my community. Again, through the same, I got an opportunity to do an exchange in Germany, to work with youth from low-income neighborhoods there, and I got to learn a lot. And I decided that I want to do all this, give back to my community, and it's when I got an opportunity to do an internship with UN Habitat, and I did not think twice on whether to come back home or not, because I wanted to continue serving my community. And today, I'm happy to say that I'm serving more than my Mathare community, because through the UN Habitat, I'm able to go to many other informal settlements and work with them, but at the same time giving back to my home community of Mathare through the initiative, where we're also giving hope to other young people. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Kellen is telling me that my time is up, but I couldn't end this without saying to you, if there is one sentence you would give to these high and mighty people in a world where we're thinking post-COVID recovery, in order to create jobs and more jobs for men, for women, for boys, for girls, what would be your elevator pitch to that high towering figure in the world today? I'll start with you, Doctor.
Thank you. I would just say one thing. Stop using standards. Stop using scales of making who's successful and who's not successful.
Very good. And Innocent, start using standards, stop using scale. That's very good, quiet, very strong one. Yes, Innocent, one sentence.
Yes, for me, I would say
more jobs.
Absolutely. For me, I would say that when adversity does not destroy you, it can form you. Therefore, refugees have been formed by adversity, and they have built resilience that is pivotal to the recovery, post-COVID recovery. They just need freedom, the availability of freedom to move from one, like in Malawi, to move from one refugee camp to the city, which is 45 kilometers, you need a pass. Now, what about moving from, Malawi to Zambia, which is a neighboring country? So I want the world to see that and create a conducive environment for refugees to use their resilience in order to really put their resilience
I gave you more than one sentence because we all join you in saying that refugees must be seen. They must not just be heard, they must be seen. And you, George, what would be your elevator pitch?
My elevator pitch would be more funding needs to go to community-led projects because this is where also sustainability will be assured, and also recognize the role of the informal economy. If we are talking about job creation, we're talking about creating opportunities. Most people will not go for white-collar jobs. They will go for the skilled jobs. So let us recognize the role of the informal economy and provide skills training to young people in slum neighborhoods. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that I had the most fantastic panelists during these conversations, because from Dr. Bakhtari to Innocent to George, you were hearing real human beings, people who are not motivated by any title. These are not even interested in being called leaders. They saw needs and they responded to those needs by making themselves available. And they are calling our attention to the fact that solutions that can help us create resilient societies, create sustainable communities that would enable us look at opportunities for collaboration between communities, private sector, partnership at the local level, at the national as well as global level, that all of these are opportunities waiting to be harnessed. At this year's event, I think we should join my panelists in agreeing that a world that is possible is one where we're forward thinking, where we're realizing that people like my panelists are never going to give up because they can do and they are already doing. It now behoves the rest of us to join them in doing. Thank you very much for what has been an interesting.
Excellent.
I have learned a lot. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a great honor. Thank you.
My name is Guratulen Bakhtiyari, and I'm a social peace activist. To this day, the wisdom of my father and the activism of my mother remained ingrained in me. When 1971 happened, the separation of East Pakistan, it hit me. My sense of security and trust shattered. I opened my doors for refugees. But it wasn't enough. So I worked at the refugee camp to help them settle. I listened to their horrible, painful stories. I understood them. But it wasn't enough. So I left the comforts of my home to submerge completely. I continued my education in community development. I had to start by understanding everything from its grassroots level. I trained men to help build 5,000 latrines. Then the Balochistan government called me, and using the same model, I built more. In 1992, I created partnership with Parent of Girl Child and Government of Balochistan to establish 2,200 schools through a process of community support. A method I designed to promote education for girls, enrolling more than 200,000 students. A few years later, the government of Balochistan declared it as part of their official policy. In 1998, I founded the Institute for Development Studies and Practices to inspire social change through young leadership for community development.
Pakistan is a country with a very fast-growing young population. 60% of its population is between 15 and 35 years, and we have no program for them. IDSP, in our institute, we reach out to these people who are missed out or who did not make in the school system or education system, or are unable to get into the job market, and give options to them. We bring them in and they go through courses on community development, on self-improvement, on citizenship, on their rights, and they then go out. Most of them get jobs or they start their own community development projects across the country.
Throughout all these years, one thing did not change: the lack of infrastructure in Balochistan, let alone any access to basic necessities and healthcare in the rural communities.
Balochistan has the highest maternal mortality in Pakistan, highest. There were girls who were midwives technically, but they had never touched a patient. They are about young women sitting, doing nothing with their credentials. They only need confidence and lot of practice of delivering, and that's it.
Today, more than 200 girls graduated as community midwives. Many of these girls now not only run their own maternal clinics in their remote areas, but are also looking after their own communities. We aspire to make IDSP a center of excellence for community development, a space to rethink and remodel social paradigms, influencing the youth, specifically women all over Pakistan.
Hello from Burundi. My name is Dawn. I'm at the Kigutu International Academy, which is located on the Village Health Works campus. The Kigutu International Academy is one of the newest initiatives from Village Health Works, and we just began actually last October in 2020 during the pandemic, and we are off a great start. So this is the Sharon McKenna Hall, the building that hosts almost all our activities. We have classrooms inside, dorms, and also the CAF is inside. Village Health Works serves over 200,000 Burundians right now in his health clinic and also in his big reach from his education program and food security program. As you might know, we focus on STEM studies because we have a health clinic that can provide as a place for prototyping the solutions or the ideas students might have. We have doctors here on site who might mentor those students depending on their interests and aspirations. The teaching methodology here at KIA is to learn by doing. Let's say we're learning physics. Our students have been prototyping bridges, and this is a type of learning that we believe works and is actually adapted to the African and Burundian context because we want to provide those skills of learning by doing here at KIA.
They teach us more about how you can use your talents to help your community. In every school in Burundi, when you say that you want to be an astronaut, they say impossible, you can't do this. You're a black person, you're a girl, like something like that. But here, it's encouraging me.
K is really helping me a lot because we have a course, like an entrepreneurial leadership course, and I'm learning so many new things here. I know that in the future I'll be able to become a better leader because I know some of the qualities the leaders have to have.
This is the type of learning that you don't get in most schools in Burundi, and we believe it's a very powerful tool to give to those students who later will be able to go in the real world, explore what they like, and also use the skills they've already gained at K.
Greetings from Burundi.
Thank you, everyone. We are so excited. It's been an amazing and inspiring 2 days of content. I have been really blown away by the community stories and grassroots voices we have heard. Just so powerful. The leaders have shown us that we must recognize the talents that already exist in marginalized communities and unlock this potential to drive durable social change. It is clear that we can no longer afford to live in a world of aid workers and beneficiaries. It's time for policymakers and philanthropists to pledge their trust and support in proximate leaders, those on the ground who know what is required and can deliver a lasting impact. I think that's all about World Community Forum. And it has been our first step as a collective towards this goal. Anyway, I'd like to welcome my friend Cheryl Dossi, a trailblazer in social entrepreneurship and the president of Econ Green. Econ Green is the world's premier accelerator for early stage entrepreneurs with a community of nearly 1,000 social innovators around the globe. The organization finds emerging leaders with the best ideas for social innovation and set them on a path to lifelong impact. I have some statistics here. So since 2012, just listen here, 75% of the organizations Econ Green have supported are founded by the leaders of color. And 75% come from the communities they serve. I call them proximate leaders. That's amazing. Those numbers are really powerful. Cheryl is an Econ Green fellow, as I am. I'm so happy to be part of the club and received the fellowship in the 1992 and then became the first Econ Green fellow to head the Social Venture Fund in the year 2002. Wow. Cheryl, I'm always in awe of you, and you know how much I love you. So given the Cheryl and Econ Green's focus, we have been working together to ensure the momentum we have been created today and tomorrow will continue. Cheryl, I'm so honored to have you join me today. And I'd like to reflect with you on where we are at this moment in time. Specifically on the topic of racial equity in development. As we both know, this issue is deeply tied to supporting proximate leaders. It's been nearly a year since Black Lives Matter became the largest movement in the US history. And the progressive white leaders in the US and globally spoke out about racial injustice and promising to do better. So you have to keep the wheel really rolling, you know? So have the realities for Black leaders really changed, Cheryl? I'm just really curious here to see, is there any change on that? And then let's talk about it together as you are such an inspiration. And I would love our audience to hear from you on this matter.
Kennedy, it is a privilege to be with you. Congratulations for convening this World Communities Forum. It is such an important event and such an important signal for how we are all going to operate differently in this moment, right? as we continue to navigate the twin crises of the global pandemic and a global racial reckoning around structural racism, we have been called to meet this moment differently. So I think, Kennedy, there is a long tail of doing this work. We don't know yet how the world will change as a result of the events of the past years. But organizers like those involved with Black Lives Matter, those of us who deeply care about putting racial equity at the top of the agenda to build a more sustainable and equitable world. The issue is front and center, Kennedy. So eyes have been open, hearts have been expanded. So I think we have a chance to move this agenda and really change the way that we do work, including work in your field, global development.
Yes, sir. And we also talk about, thank you so much for that, because I really don't understand what is happening around the world, because I see this for me as a anti-Black bias globally. I'm being honest with you. It took you, Echoing Green and Brisbane, to come up with the data. And I was really, really shocked, Cheryl, to see that in there's only 76% of the organization that are getting less compared. These are talk about associate funding compared to the white-led, and I'm like, wow. Why there's never been an alarm? Do you think this is gonna change because we are now using data and statistics?
So, Kennedy, thank you for referencing the research that we did with our partners at the Bridgespan Group to really codify and articulate the depth of racial inequities in philanthropic funding for leaders of color. But we know, you know better than I do, Kennedy, that these same disparities exist in global development. You remember better than I do. You remember in 2016 when the grand bargain was made, when donors and large aid organizations committed to sending 25% of humanitarian aid funding as directly as possible to local and national organizations by the year 2020. Kennedy, what happened? We actually saw the direct funding to those groups actually go down. It went from 3.5% of funding in 2016 down to 2.1% in 2020. This is what structural racism looks like. And until we start to do two things, sort of the work of decolonizing these systems, which means one, beginning to really shift money and power to communities that are doing this work, right? And that's not only about shifting power to people who look like us and groups led by people who look like us, but also an explicit depowerment agenda of non-Indigenous actors. You've got to do both simultaneously. And we've got to take steps big and small together to make sure that this agenda happens. You've got to give more money to groups like SHOFGO and the wonderful groups that you've highlighted over the past 2 days. You've got to invest in intermediaries like the Echoing Greens of the world that sit between the rooftops and the grassroots. You've got to really change the face of who's giving. We look at the investment community at the moment that has made a big push to back and identify more fund managers of color. We've got to do that in the global development space, Kennedy. We've got to do all of this work all at once in this moment if we are going to better support proximate leaders and ensure that this funding is getting equitably to leaders like you who are doing vital work in your communities.
I agree with you, Cheryl. It's really important because it is a racial injustice and a colonial mindset that has been really happening systematically. You know what I mean? And I think that's why I passed through that really as an example, but that's why we're doing this thing called World Community Forum, and because of what's happening and giving them a seat at the table when the big issues are taking place. So I hope people are watching that. And then, Cheryl, I want to talk about the future. What is next? How can you achieve it? Please, I know we have seen a lot of negativity, but let's now think about how do you see the future?
That's a big question, and in a couple of minutes, I will not do the answer justice, but I will say that pandemics across the course of history, Kennedy, have led societies to choose a fork in the road. Pandemics are very good at amplifying existing structural inequities. And this current pandemic has done that as well. And we have the option to go back to quote unquote business as usual, which I strongly disagree with, or we can fundamentally rethink and transform how to build a more equitable and just society. And I think the work that leaders like you all are doing, the global movement around social innovation, gives us a North Star to fundamentally rethink the way that we construct societies, the way that we deploy resources to proximate leaders. So I think we have a moment to do better. And I do think moving forward, racial equity has to be a core part of everything we do. We've got to center racial equity in all of our decision-making rubrics moving forward. This is as important in the global South as it is in the United States. And I think it is the way that we can sort of construct a new framework for deploying and resourcing proximate leaders like all of those who have convened over the past few days as part of the World Communities Forum. And I think we've got a multiracial coalition of actors, a multi-stakeholder group that is open to hearing and thinking differently about how to move forward.
That's true. I agree with you on that. And that's really giving me much hope. The momentum created by the World Community Forum will continue through the Global Alliance for Communities, which is working to make tangible measures changes. You will see some questions appear on the right of the screen, and I ask you to please share your answers with us as we continue to take this work forward. The Alliance will progress all the themes and outputs from the last 2 days, and we'll hear more from us soon. We are also moving forward with our policy ask, which you will have seen throughout the 2 days and will be shared again shortly. That's why it's not just about a conference, not just people meeting. We want to have tangible things. We want to make sure that we have a plan after this. Otherwise, it'll be just a normal conference. So we have a long way to go, but I feel, and I hope, I feel the change in the air. I want to thank you all. Thank you so much to our grassroots speakers and Spotlight participants. You are rocking. You are amazing. You have gone above and beyond to tell your stories with us. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you also to our active listeners. They lended their voice, their powerful voice to this platform, which means the world to me. I am so inspired and I hope you are too. We'll be back in touch soon to continue the conversation. And now, let's end strong with our collaborative workshops. Please join us. Thank you so much.